I'm gonna have fun with this video because today we are gonna talk about the top 10 reasons why preppers are moving to the Ozarks. Moving to Southern Missouri is the best thing I've ever done for my family. Make sure that you stick around to the end of the video because number 10 is probably the most important. And I'm also gonna share some bonus tips and kind of concepts that I've learned through decades of prepared thinking. Also, you guys, if you aren't subscribed, and most of you watching this video and all my videos are not subscribed, do me a favor. If you want to show me some love, it doesn't cost anything for you. Hit the icon and help me grow this channel. Okay, you guys, top 10 reasons that preppers are moving to the Ozarks, not necessarily ordered in terms of significance. Number 1 is that there is a majority of conservative people living in Southern Missouri. So I could go off on all of the benefits of being in a community that is predominantly conservative. And also, if you don't like the word conservative, don't get your panties in a bunch. In fact, don't even watch this video. I'm just speaking from my own life experience where I was raised and came from the radical left, and now kind of feel radical right, where I feel like things need to be a lot more conservative on the conservative side even. So that's just my life experience and the trajectory that my evolution has gone. What I find in conservative communities is that the majority of people are adequately to heavily armed. I like that. I also find that especially in the rural areas, but kind of just all throughout Missouri, there is an incredible skill set. One could argue because the adult population isn't spending time doing things like, making art at Burning Man, and instead they're actually focusing for the bulk of their life on building skill sets and building the strength of their families. Speaking of families, I have found in conservative communities that often there are stronger multi-generational families, and I think that there's a lot of strength to that. You could have a whole video on the strength of the multi-generational family. I also find that these, predominantly conservative areas are mostly Christian. I believe that true morality comes from God, not relativism, but like true morality comes from a spiritual questing in your heart. So you could argue that that is actually incredibly important in any period, but definitely like any kind of Armageddon kind of situation. And I'm going to talk more about God and Christianity at the end of the video. Number 2 reason that preppers are moving to the Ozarks is because we have low government restrictions here. Now, why would that be favorable in an SHTF scenario? Because, let's be honest, perhaps one way that could play out is that government has completely broken down and we're in a bit of a Mad Max scenario. Well, here's why it matters in the here and now, is that when you have low government restrictions, people can actually build their homes and homesteads without a lot of that heavy cost and infringement from the government. So here, it's not illegal to put in rain catchment, which in a lot of these blue states, it is actually illegal to catch the rain. And then you could go off on so many other things like that, but also just developing your property as you see fit to make it the strongest homestead to benefit your family in any scenario. That is going to be easier with low government restrictions than incredibly high government restrictions. And the third reason that preppers are moving to the Ozarks is because there are favorable gun laws in Missouri. We are not just an open carry state, but we are a constitutional carry state. I often see men in the stores and at churches with, their sidearms showing, and I feel good about that. I feel safer as a woman with my children out in public when I see that, especially when I can tell, because I can kind of tell on different, really subtle levels, the presence of a strong man. And there's a lot of well-armed, strong men around here. And I mean that spiritually and psychologically strong. And I feel safer with that. And if I have to explain the gun law thing to you too much, then perhaps you are at the wrong channel. So the fourth reason preppers are moving to the Ozarks is we have 4 true seasons and they're fairly mild. Now that is favorable for a lot of reasons. The most obvious perhaps is the growing season, right, for food. I would say that my strategy there has changed so much. Now remember, like I said, my evolution has been from far left to far right. So I once lived on a hippie commune and we had like 5 acres of gardens and I was vegan and we were trying to grow beans and quinoa. And it was incredibly hard. I had bloody fingers all the time from the workload, and truly realized up in those high elevation mountains of Siskiyou, California, gorgeous area, very rugged. And that landscape schooled me and taught me real lessons and brought me back to meat. Meat became like so holy to me up there, because what I saw is that no matter how hard I worked, I could not produce the food for the vegan diet. I could not work hard enough to produce that food, nor did I have the energy to sustain it and sustain the long, hard winters that we had up there. We even got 4 feet of snow at the end of April, and that was the winter that I started eating meat again, because I was faced with reality of calorie production and consumption. So where I'm at now is very different. I actually think mostly just about a few heifer calf pairs and, outdoor and greenhouse production of primarily greens. I truly believe that that is the most important thing. Now, so many other, vegetables and foods are lovely. So if you're able to do kind of like a rotational species program where you have lambs too, that's beautiful. Chickens are just wonderful. I love chicken, I love the meat, but the eggs are so huge to me. Although I do think a lot about sustaining them without any kind of store-bought grain is different. The only people that I have seen do it are ones that have these massive compost piles, and so they're pretty much producing bugs on site. But here's the thing, those people I knew that were doing it were having compost trucked in. They had a commercial compost business. So they were able to sustain a huge amount of chickens with that. But I think that really with a prepper mindset, you're looking at such microsystems, because you're just going to be producing for your family and hopefully small bands of people that have come together. Chickens are not out of the picture, and I think it can be done without grain. But in terms of producing the best and the biggest amount of calories for your family or your tribe is going to be cattle. And in a similar mindset, when I think about vegetables, if I have a pile of greens, I will be okay without carrots and sweet potatoes and some of the other, maybe more high carb, which are good, which are good vegetables. But I really truly could live off just a pile of greens and a pile of meat and fat. The fifth reason that preppers are moving to the Ozarks is that we are fairly protected from natural disasters. And as soon as I say that, I can almost just see the comments coming in that are going to battle me on this. But I believe, and locals believe, and their grandmas and their grandpas believed that we are fairly protected from tornadoes in this area. I've talked about it so much, and I have fought people so much about it online. Here's what I would say is that just for you, find the place that you feel that you're the most safe. And I will say this, that although I do think that we are fairly protected from widespread damage from tornadoes, I still want a storm shelter, and it will probably be a 2026 project for me and my family. So, everyone, you've got to figure out where you feel the most safe. Here, I feel that we are fairly protected from earthquakes. I know that there's debate about the New Madrid. I feel that we are fairly safe here, and that we're really safe from wildfires. Although they happen, and I have made a video on that, they are incredibly rare. Flooding is obviously another big issue, and I would say as has been posed on other channels is that perhaps even flooding is being strategically used to destroy communities. There is that potential. I do feel that we're fairly protected here because a lot of it is hilly. Now, if you are living in bottomland here in Missouri, that is probably not totally safe. You should, like they do out in Van Buren, build up on stilts. Like if you want to be bottomland right by the river, just build up on stilts. But even where you're perched along that river, if you are up high enough elevation, you're probably going to be safe, but know your elevation and know what that would look like if there was a flood event. I like how some people say, like, if this property floods, like literally it will be a days of Noah event, and that will probably be the least of your worries, and you just won't be strategically staying in that home. So just know your elevation, know what a 500 flood could do, and plan accordingly. The sixth reason that people are moving to the Ozarks and why I moved to the Ozarks is COVID kind of didn't happen here, nor did forced jabs. I'm not going to dig into that too much. Either you understand what I'm saying or you don't. Let's move on to number 7. The 7th reason that preppers are moving to the Ozarks is that we have amazing water systems here. I have yet to hear of anyone drilling a dry well in southern Missouri. That is a huge level of insurance in my mind. Where I live, there are almost, I believe, 3 overlapping aquifers. We have creeks that literally compare to some of the rivers I grew up on. Large creeks, great water systems, great lake systems with dams that I have checked out that will not affect these areas for the bulk of where the counties that I serve would not be flooded if there was a major dam event, which is something that I've looked into. I recommend that everyone actually consider that with location and with preps is nearby dams in proximity to your land and how the water would flow out of that dam if it were to break. And let's be frank, some dams could be strategically demolished and areas flooded as a military operation. So yes, dams are important to understand. The 8th reason that preppers are moving to the Ozarks is that we have an amazing cave systems here in southern Missouri. And they already have like military strategical history with the Civil War, and they're beneficial in so many ways. They're amazing for guerrilla warfare. Okay, we already know that from our history. They're amazing for food storage. We know that because big corporations from all over the country use them. They're amazing for like an underground network of movement, and that could be military or just goods or weathering storms. Yeah, you could say that too. Natural storm shelters. I mean, I could just go off, you guys. Caves are amazing. And I didn't even know they were here. It was just yet another added bonus when I got here. I was like, are you serious? I had never really seen caves. The only caves I had seen were along the ocean, and they're kind of dangerous because they usually would fill with high tide and low tide. So these cave systems were mind-blowing to me and just such an added bonus, especially for people who have a prepper mindset. Believe it or not, the 9th reason that some preppers are moving to the Ozarks is the history of the Civil War. And for those of you that are locals, you understand when I say that I live in Booger County, that there is a lot of history, rich history with Civil War strategy, only really able to be used in southern Missouri because of the cave systems, the topography, those mild seasons. I mean, all of those things actually played into the role that Missouri had, specifically southern Missouri in the Civil War. And I think that there's just such rich history that shows that this is, whether it's a pro or a con, it's a great battleground. Yikes, I even hate saying that. I'm actually going to call out some often men here, is that we have a lot of like keyboard conservatives, which are often men who like to get online and ramp up a lot of fervor about how we should have civil war and how just different whatever, even like, you know, liberal groups that I don't agree with, but that there should be like this violent war with them. And often it's empty threats. It's actually insane. Anyone who is like loosely like getting all ramped up and being like, yeah, we should have civil war. Like, are you insane? Do you seriously understand the ramifications and the brutality of civil war? I want you to stop and really check yourself and think about what brother versus brother looks like in a nation. So I don't talk about choice battleground lightly, and I will never lightly talk about civil war like it's just something that makes me feel good to say like we should go kill these people I don't agree with, right? I don't think that that's wise. I also don't think that it's Christian. Saying that, I'm also, pragmatic enough to know that war of all types, civil and international, happen. And also humanity versus robots may happen. Like, I do not know what the future holds. So I cannot help it. God gave me a brain that does often think in terms of military strategy. I've had a very weak father that didn't protect my family, and a very abusive mother that told me that I was the man of the family. And so I was always thinking about provision and protection, things that maybe a lot of women don't think about if they have, amazing fathers, amazing husbands. I've never had that. And so in a weird way, I think that God, has maybe strategically placed it where I have this mindset. But I do not ever think about these things lightly. Okay, you guys, the most important reason that people are moving to the Ozarks, truly, I believe this is the most important, and it's because God told them to. How cool is that? I mean, I have never experienced this in my life before. Getting to be a realtor, and I've talked about this in a lot of videos, is a really special thing where I get to hear, if not daily, a few times a week, that someone moved to this area or someone desires to move to this area because they feel compelled by God. That is so incredibly special and so intriguing. I'm intrigued by that on mind, body, and soul level. Why is that? What is going to go down? What is happening that there is a seriously significant portion of people that feel led and driven by God to change location and specifically are drawn to the Ozarks? And as I talked about before about conservative communities being predominantly Christian and why that had, purpose, I think that it's so important because, as I said, all morality, I believe, comes from God. And I believe that truly only the level of bravery that it takes to withstand torture, to protect children, all sorts of crazy SHTF scenarios that you could come up with, that level of bravery really truly only comes from God. So to wrap up this video, I'm going to talk about some somewhat random psychologies that I have picked up along the way that I think are beneficial in any scenario, but obviously specifically SHTF. So the first is that as a Christian, I would like to save more and produce more than I need so that I can share. Now, while saying that, also, I do not think it's wise to just loosely tell anyone about your preps, about kind of the details of what you have and what you don't have, either on your homestead, in your savings or whatever. Here's why I don't think it's wise to share details about your preps. Obviously, you don't truly know the real fabric of someone's soul and their heart. I have been continually surprised at thinking that people were had goodness in them and finding out that they really don't. Here's what I feel about humanity right now, is that a lot of people are wearing a mask and we actually don't know the true quality of their soul and their fortitude and their morality. And that if we actually knew it, what we would find out is that there's a lot more wolves in sheep's clothing in our communities than we realize. So is it possible that you would make friends even in a church setting and feel free about sharing about what guns you have and your preps and all these details, and that you actually don't know what that person would do in a scenario where they maybe are hungry. I think that that is number one reason why you should just, for the most part, don't share the details, the inner workings of your family with very many people. Now, I do think that you should have an inner circle. And for me, inner circle is so small and so rare. Yeah, I mean, we're talking a very small inner circle. But actually, and that is a little bit of like a fear mentality, but it's just kind of wise, I think. But here's actually something I think about that's even more important than that. Everyone that you tell information to, like, hey, I've got this stored here and I've got this here and that there, you're literally putting them at jeopardy. And here's how. I know this is brutal to think about, but if that person has family and there are bad guys at their property torturing their family, that person will tell anything, right? So, if they have to, spill the beans on where you keep X, Y, and Z to save their family, of course they're going to do that. So the more people that you tell details about what you should kind of be protecting and preserving, actually, the more you're putting them at risk in a torture situation. Now, I know that's crazy. Only probably a small minority of us are literally perhaps gifted or cursed with a military mindset that thinks about these kind of details. So keep your business to yourself for the most part. And I say that also with the parallel kind of thought, which is that also produce more, save more than you need so that you can strategically share, build community, strengthen networks. Yes, that should be done as well. So this last point is a bit personal. I think it's really important to kind of know what you're capable of. And I for surely know that I'm capable of protecting my family, but I need to strengthen my training. And the reason why I'm sharing all this is that it's incredibly important to know the integrity of the people that you're surrounded by. We live in maybe the end of an empire, very opulent times, lots of sin. Who are you sleeping next to? Are they the kind of person that lie, cheat, and steal? Are they the kind of person that spend their time in sin versus working for the benefit of their family? Are they someone that would literally like bootlick for a stranger's attention while throwing their family downriver? That, if they're doing that in the opulent good times, what do you think they're going to do in the hard times? And this message goes straight to men. I actually have a message for men and women. And I shred on both equally, so everyone just don't get mad. But men, your job is to use your strength to protect the innocent, to protect women, children, and elderly. I see so much strength that's often produced in a gym, and it's really just used for like a need to feel sexually desirable, I feel like. Like it's like, yeah, I feel like I'm seeing it. And I'm seeing it, what's crazy is I'm seeing it all the way from young guys to guys in their 60s. Like there's this really crazy pull right now. And I think that it comes from men wanting to create strength. So I'm seeing more men like get on testosterone or some sort of like testosterone producing drug. And I mean, down to men in their 20s and 30s where like it's crazy. I don't think that men realize what they're tinkering with who are doing this kind of stuff. And then they're taking it to the gym and they're producing strength and they're producing feelings that they think are masculine. But this is where it actually becomes toxic masculinity. I know we don't want to hear that term, but men, please listen. True masculinity is when that you are producing strength that is used to uphold, to protect the most sacred elements and the most vulnerable elements of society. Children, women, elderly, okay? Building your homestead. So much strength right now is being produced artificially. It is housed and isolated in gyms, and it is kept truly for yourself so that you can feel sexually desirable again, or maybe for the first time in your life. And I'm not saying that that's wrong. Like it's such a thin line between whether that is right or wrong, but truly how you are using your strength is really the fruit. So we will know the tree by the fruit that it bears, right? And what it's rooted in. So if you are, and if, hey, no judgment, like you got on hormone replacement, you're feeling good, you feel some energy, you're taking it to the gym, you're working out, then what are you going to do with it? Are you strategically building your skill set to teach other generations, because that is foundational to legacy and the survival of humanity? Seriously. Are you using it to build and strengthen your communities, to rehabilitate people from sin? Or are you using it really for vanity and your own sin? So these are things that we need to be looking at in any period, but strategically, like, it is a good idea as well in terms of potentially reaching the end of empire. And it wouldn't be fair, ladies, if I didn't talk to you. I am so sick and tired of hearing women at the same time want more of their man's time and then also complain that he's working too hard. Now, I do recognize that there needs to be balance. I do recognize that. But I have seen really good men that are trying to use their strength appropriately. They're trying to position their family in better places. And I actually don't think that they're working too hard and spending too much time away from the family. I think that there are a lot of women who are kind of overwhelmed by the work that it takes to run a home and a family. And I get it. I am a single mother. I do it all. I work full time. I have a homestead. I have a home. I have 3 children. One of them is a baby. I really, really, really get it. But if you have a hardworking man, you have to understand what a gift that is. Now, ladies, here is where you have a right to be upset. So in a man's free time, okay, so when he is not out working and slaying dragons and bringing back the food, you know, I mean, we're going to talk in primal terms, but that's truly spiritually and physically what he should be doing, right? If he comes back and he is just scrolling and just lavishing on himself or just, you know, scurrying back off to the gym and scurrying back off to share energy and maybe even some of that masculinity that he's crafted with other people in the community, where it's not being used to better, you know, the vulnerable parts of population or to build strong communities, but it's maybe being used in kind of a fake bravado, strutting around kind of way, then yeah, you should be upset, because truly men should be building their homesteads when they are not out slaying dragons and fighting to protect and preserve the last sacred parts of humanity. They should be in their home waging those battles in their home. And they are spiritual, they are physical. You know, if you have teenagers, you're gonna know that, like, the spiritual battle is real. The spiritual battle to keep your teenagers on point, mind, body, and soul, is a full-time battle in this day and age. And if you haven't realized that, you're probably not doing a good enough job. You're not monitoring their cell phones, that's for sure. And you actually probably have no idea what goes on in their inner world. I'm not saying that my teenage daughter is doing perfectly, but I know what she's battling against. We literally talk about the most uncomfortable, hardest things ever. We know each other. That is where the battle is at. And women, you do have a right to be upset if your men don't even know what's going on in the inner workings of their children. If they just know it on a superficial level and that's all they care about, there is an issue and there is a bone to pick. So to wrap all that up, you guys, what is amazing about dark times and hard times, and potentially what will come in the future, I don't know. It could just be all easy. It could be. This could all just be imaginary. And you know what? I would rather be prepared than not, right? Have your lamps ready. Probably second to being good with God is being good in your family. Now, for me, it is hard for me to say that as someone that does not have a man and is going to be raising my children alone. Family is so crucial. And if that is you as a single parent and just it's about the closeness that you have with your children, then that is what you need to focus on, right? Definitely don't be focusing on creating superficial relationships with men or women if you're a single parent and you're a dad that could harm your family, right? Only things that can strengthen your family. Now, those of you that have multi-generational families, man, please realize what a blessing it is. What a blessing it is, especially in an SHTF scenario. I have struggled hearing people that have multi-generational families complain about each other, and they're complaining about just stupid little personality disputes, okay? They don't do this and they leave this on, and all the little tit for tat things, right? In-laws that are too much in your business, which does have to get checked. That is communication that has to be addressed, but it is so minor. So please see it as minor. Strengthen that communication in your family and talk about all those little grievances, but please realize they're little grievances. I'm going to wrap up this video. What I'm excited about is I'm excited about being able to be the generation that changes all the ancestral baggage, maybe it's demonic, that has cursed my line for so long. And I am going to be an amazing grandparent. I'm not going to spoil my kids, but I'm going to be there for my kids and my grandchildren. I believe that my legacy is not about what I can, save and pass on and all of those things. That's part of it. But it is so much about the skill sets that I'm going to share. The psychology, the heart, the spirit, the fortitude. That is where the magic is. And that is probably where the strongest foundation can be built, that can be passed on so other generations can build upon it. And you know what? It's not just for our children, okay? I'm not a communist, but I am a little communally minded. I think that's Christian. I think a lot about when I get to a place, hopefully soon, and I can start to spread out that legacy to other children, especially troubled youth in this area, because that is also a prepared mindset. Right? Let's not just think about our own families. Let's think about rehabilitating some other youth that are next to us, and that creates a stronger community. Okay, you guys, until next time, thank you for watching this video to the end. Remember, like and subscribe and all that stuff. And if you want to talk real estate and want to talk about the next best move of your life, especially if you understand everything that I've talked about in this video, please call me up and we're going to talk about you moving to the Ozarks.